And see if I can find the right screen to share. Rick, can you see the slides pretty good?
We're on. It just says Zoom right now, though. Join the meeting. That's all we're looking at.
Oh, that's all it says.
Yeah, we just got the sign-on page.
It doesn't have the roundtable series up.
Nope.
All right, hang on. Let me stop and redo that.
Now we do.
Well, welcome everyone. This is our first roundtable since December, and sorry we had to postpone it a week, but that kind of worked out for the best, I think. So welcome to the January 14th, 2021 Administrative Roundtable Series. And I thought you guys know that I always put this in here to remember to record, because if I didn't, I'd forget. But anyway, it's great to be here. It's great to see everyone. And the Happy Days gang and Happy Days are here again. It's time for another roundtable, and the whole Happy Days gang is here. That's what this got to be Happy Days when we're all together doing a roundtable. And old Fonzie says these roundtables help solve problems, and they're cool. And Fonzie says they're cool, because that's the way it goes. And Ralph and Potsy and Richie, they say only nerds would miss the monthly roundtable. However, Lenny and Squiggy, they don't really say that much great about it, but we're not going to listen to Lenny and Squiggy. We're going to listen to the boys. Happy days, getting vaccines, and it seems like we're on the other side of getting out of the Corona-19 time period. And of course, you all know when we're here, we talk about guidance that comes from TEA. And all of the guidance that you can find is on the TEA Coronavirus COVID-19 Support and Guidance website. And I'm sure you all know where that is. And if you don't, it's just it's kind of the jump off page for all COVID-19 information relating to TEA. There's two different major documents that tend to have impact on career tech. And one is the attendance and enrollment, and the other is the public health guidance. And the only really update that we have from the last time we met came from the attendance and enrollment document. And as you can see, the latest update on the website is December 10th, 2020. And as you can see, the update that's most current and will impact the most of you has to do with if a student is receiving remote instruction and is struggling academically with attendance or in other ways, can the school district force them to come to campus? And so the guidance here is, it's a little ambiguous, but basically what it says is, given certain parent concerns about COVID-19, LEAs who choose to offer remote instruction with the requirement and exceptions of this document must ensure that those families have access to remote instruction unless the student's academic and attendance is suffering dramatically, and they're at significant risk of losing of learning loss. And of course, you know, most of us going to read that as failing. And so in these cases, the school districts must provide notice to the student's parents and give them a right to appeal for medical or other other reasons. And they can hold a meeting in person or virtual, and if the student or parent requests an appeal. And the LEAs must follow these steps to discontinue remote learning. They must submit an attestation to TEA. They can identify the students discontinued if one or both the student has a class average of below 70 or 3 or more unexcused absence during a grading period. The LEAs must notify the parent 2 weeks prior before requiring the students to come on campus, and with language that is consistent. And then the parents may agree to change their child's learning environment to on campus, or they can appeal, and they have two ways: a medical exemption, or they can go to a transition meeting, and that's all through a student's org. If the parents does not appeal at the conclusion, the LEA can make the students come to campus. And as a reminder, parents can choose for their students to transition to on-campus instruction at any time if implemented in line with the grading periods. And of course, all of this information is in the December 10th, 2020-2021 attendance and enrollment frequently asked question. And you can find that on that TEA coronavirus website. And so that was the major update that was in those two documents. And again, one of the things that we always remind you to do is, be the expert in your district. Every time that they have an update, go through there, and they always highlight the updates in yellow with yellow boxes. Go through there and make sure you're aware of the updates and what's going on. Updates as far as other, there's still one more day if you want to submit an industry-based certification. They'll take those through tomorrow. And so you can do that just going to the TEA industry-based certification website, and you can provide your input as far as which industry certifications will be offered in the future. Also, there's a new programs of study update, and like we talked about last time, they have the new templates on there with the new courses. So if you want to update your programs of study for the 2021-2022 school year, if you're working on those catalogs, those updates are available. Also, this came out actually before our December meeting about the Perkins getting your final budget and your bump money or your reallocation. And I was talking to Valerie Jones, and I think most people, and that's one of the things that we can discuss during the open discussion, is if anyone has received their NOGA. I haven't talked to anyone who received their NOGA as of last week. And of course, I encourage you to go on there, and you can sign up for the TEA updates and the listservs, and just type in your email, and then at least subscribe to the Career Tech. And I encourage you to also sign up for the Administrator of Trust, which is the superintendents you get. Also, we have the new Teacher Academy. We have the Next Gen Administrators, which will meet on the third Thursday of every month, and we will meet next week for the Next Gen Administrator. The Midwinter Conference is coming up. It's still not too late to sign up, and also we're still scheduling program evaluations if anyone needs a program evaluation done. Make sure that you go to the CTAT YouTube channel, and you can sign up, and events like this one that are being recorded will most of the time be posted that same day or the next day on the CTAT YouTube channel. So make sure you go in there and subscribe and hit that bell so you get notified. Again, if you want to sign up for CTAT Winter Conference for 2021, that's available on the new and improved CTAT website, which is fantastic. And you can go on there and still have plenty of time to register for the Winter Conference. If you're asking me, I say this coronavirus has jumped the shark. That's what I say when I'm sick of it. And just like Fonzie jumped the shark, and it kind of ended. Fonzie jumped it in his leather jacket, but that's where that term "jump the shark" came from. When Fonzie jumped the shark on Happy Days, they said Happy Days kind of going downhill. So anyway, I think the coronavirus has about jumped the shark with me. And so now we're going to go ahead, and I'm going to stop sharing, and we're going to get as we all know, the legislation is coming up this summer, and Robin is getting bombarded with stuff, and she has fantastic information to share. So Robin, if you're on, do you want to share your, have you made on? Oh, awesome.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Fantastic. Hey, everybody. And Happy New Year. Let's do a group wave. I like it. Is everybody smiling? Because you might not be in June. No, actually, I'm kidding. Guys, I got to tell you, the picture is not as gloom for funding public education as we all thought. And I think the #1 reason is that everybody on here has become, along with all of our fellow Texans, very avid internet shoppers. This is a good thing. Don't stop. Keep it up. You need a boat, you need a car, run out and do it. Instacart, grocery delivery, takeout, anything you pay sales tax on, gas tax. Man, y'all need to be driving every single Sunday for at least a few hours getting out of the house. I know you need to get out of the house. So don't stop, because you're doing our economy a favor. That's where most of our state revenue comes from, to pay for public education. So you guys are doing a great job, and you need to keep it up. So with that word of encouragement, let's just revisit CTAT's role in state policy. We got just over 800 members, and we represent the CTE community. So we've got a big job at the Capitol. No matter how difficult that job is, we're going to do it. So we advance policy to address issues, make sure there's equitable access, make sure there's financial support for our CTE programs. We make sure that our policy members, our lawmakers, are informed, because oftentimes they take office, they really have no idea about CTE, or if they're knowledgeable, sometimes, actually, to be quite honest, most of the time it barely scratches the surface. And so the more you can do to reach out to your state rep and your senator, just to introduce yourself as the session gets started, make a friendly phone call to their Capitol office. Good luck getting a hold of a staffer, but you will. And just ask to speak to the policy director on education, person in charge of education. Just introduce yourself. Say, hey, I'm Tammy Caesar. I am with Austin ISD, and I just want to let you know that I can be a resource for you during this session. Here's my mobile number. You reach out to me anytime. I want you to make sure that if lawmakers have questions, they feel comfortable contacting you. I also encourage you, especially if you have a new representation in the House, is to invite them to visit your campus. If you're following safety protocols, if your campus allows visits, it would be appropriate. If not, don't make it happen. But under normal circumstances, that's never a bad idea, okay? And I wouldn't be afraid to show lawmakers if you feel as if you have a program where the equipment is subpar. It demonstrates what you need money for in order to bring a facility up to state-of-the-art industry standard. Don't be afraid to reach out, make that personal connection, and just offer to be a resource. If they ask you questions and you have no idea, you send them to me. That's my job. I'll take care of that. If it gets difficult, or if you feel like they need a follow-up call, let me know. I'm happy to do that. So CTAT does lobby. We have contracted representation, which means that your dues are deductible as a business expense, okay? We collaborate significantly with other education-related groups that represent industry to advance particular policy initiatives. So how is I know this question has come up before, how are CTAT's policy priorities developed? And we do that through a variety of means. The #1 of which is listening to our members. We watch the CTAT Connect for the chatter back and forth to identify issues. We have members call Mark and myself to say, hey, I've got an issue, and we walk through it. We identify if really it's something that's within the district's control, or whether or not there's an opportunity for a state fix with policy or statute. It's our job. Don't be afraid if you've got a question. There may be a solution, and if there isn't, we can explore the possibility of developing one. So the reason we're doing these legislative updates during monthly roundtable is A, if you haven't had your afternoon nap after lunch, this would be a good time if you're not interested in this. But for people who are really interested, we want to keep you posted every roundtable during session, okay? One of the reasons is, as an organization, as part of our culture, we're committed to feedback. We want to make sure that throughout the legislative session that we are representing the best interests of our members. If we're discussing bills, if you've got questions, if you've got concerns, there are no stupid questions. it is very important for us to hear genuine feedback from experts such as yourselves. It makes, it keeps us more on point and authentic when talking to lawmakers, when we can explain in detail the impact of what happens, good or bad, to districts if certain policy were to be enacted. So your feedback matters, okay? And remember, you establish that direct line of communication with your lawmaker, you've got another step in helping us represent CTE at the grassroots level. So with that, all right, so what's been going on in Austin? It's been very different than the nation's capital, thank goodness. So right now, our lawmakers in Texas, they convened on the 12th. So they just started, this was their first week, and they're really out of the gate with a strong start. The Senate finished rulemaking yesterday. Both chambers are working on protocol and rulemaking this week. The only significant, and it's not that significant, change in the Senate rules so far is that last session, in order to get a bill to come before the Senate chamber, they needed 19 senators in favor of bringing that bill forward. They reduced that count by 1, so they only need 18 senators to bring it forward. So, you know, just minor adjustments there. But what they haven't tackled yet is how they're gonna deal with COVID as the session rolls on. And I don't mean COVID as a statewide issue, I mean COVID inside the Capitol building. Because right now, there are no guidelines. There's a little temperature check out front, they're giving COVID tests, but guess what? If you're in the Capitol, 15 minutes later, you have a positive result, there's no contact to let you know you need to leave the building. So in some offices, the staffers are wearing masks and others are not. As you can imagine, some of this is along party lines. And so really, Capitol Dish is kind of a petri dish right now. So that's what's going on there. So they're actually going to take a break until January 26th. And that gives them a chance to figure out what their guidelines are for being part of the legislature during COVID. They're asking questions like, well, do we have to vote from the chamber floor as we always have in the past? Or can we vote from our offices? They're wanting to know if committee meetings are going to have or allow participation virtually, or if they have to be in person. Because I got to tell you, the number of rooms, the committee hearing rooms at the Capitol that would allow for adequate social distancing are very few in number. And so unless they allow some virtual meetings or they start a 24-hour schedule, it's going to be difficult. So they're trying to figure that out right now. So they elected a new speaker in the House. His staff is brand new to us. So we're trying to get to know them. We've got brand new staffers in House Pub Ed, brand new staffers in Senate Ed. And so in a way, that's a good thing. In a way, that's a bad thing. But for us, it means we get the opportunity to introduce ourselves as experts and be there to assist them as they evaluate bills. So effectively, they've done the coin toss and they're running right to halftime. Nothing's going to happen for a couple weeks. When they come back together, most likely they're going to start to address redistricting. They're going to go ahead and have those committees start meeting. And that's going to be a long, slow process. But with respect to the budget, right now, our budget shortfall for this session is $953 million. If I had a bill that was outstanding of $953 million, I would definitely freak. I'd be buying a Mega Millions ticket every single Wednesday. But the good news is it's less than $1 billion in a shortfall. And if we want to compare that to the shortfall in 2009, that one was 27 billion. So we're only talking less than $1 billion. I know these are huge numbers, but really there's enough to take care of that. A couple ways. There is the rainy day fund, and several lawmakers have expressed support for using it. They have enacted a 5% cut among agencies, among state agencies, and that alone could assist. Now, whether that stays in effect for every single agency at that rate, we don't know. But there is a possibility that there may not be any cuts to public education. So we're just going to have to keep our eyes out as they get started. Apparently, according to the comptroller, you guys are driving, you're spending money, Our economy is rebounding quickly. So that's a good thing. And already we know the foundation school program is exempt from the 5% cut. So in theory, this may not be terrible. So just to give you an idea of how much things have ticked up in internet sales, y'all were busy this Christmas. I mean, for the past 12 months, internet sales have been have resulted in 1.2 billion in revenue. And that's just the sales tax collected by our state. I don't even want to talk about how much is going into Jeff Bezos' pocket every 5 minutes, but that could be interesting. So the lawmakers, they want to tackle the budget. The issues that are likely to dominate telehealth and distance learning. Can they make improvements there? The recent election showed a record number of voters. This scares lawmakers that like to get reelected. And so they're going to look at streamlining how ballots are handed out, how elections are handled, especially in cases where they know some individuals may have received more than one ballot by mistake. So they're just going to look at streamlining those things, make sure it's equitable. And they don't want to disenfranchise voters. There will be a House Bill 3 cleanup. We already know that TEA has submitted a book of changes that they'd like to request. We haven't seen what's in it yet. So we're working on that. We hope to have more news to share with you next time. And as you know, in House Bill 3, a couple of critical components for CTE was maintaining that at least, I think it's 55%, correct me if I'm wrong, that the funds generated by CTE must be spent on the programs. And so that was a nail biter down to the last minute to know whether or not that was going to be retained. The other one, of course, was extending the weighted funding for CTE to Tech Apps courses and for courses down at the middle school, offered at the middle school level for high school credit. We believe that we've got clearance in the Senate to address the issue that Fort Worth ISD, Daphne Ricard, brought to our attention about losing money when students enrolled in the PTech and Innovative Academy dual credit programs, when they meet on the high school schedule, they don't generate enough minutes to qualify for weighted funding. So the Senate has given us a green light to address that, which is great. It will probably ultimately be added on to a bill that is moving. So we're working on that. I also have learned recently they're interested in addressing inequity for smaller and rural districts that were harmed. There was when they adjusted the allotment, I guess a lever was removed that sort of compensates those areas for fewer enrollment. So, so that I believe is going to be fixed. Don't know the details yet. So once guidelines and protocols are spelled out, in theory, the lawmakers will get to work. So now I'm going to pause and share screen. I'm going to show you some of the bills we are following. But first, all right, if you can see my screen, give me a nod or a thumbs up. All right, thank you, Mr. Ship. So if you are looking for resources to watch the legislative session, there are several resources available out there. So for CTAT.org, of course, we've got a call out button on our homepage for advocacy. We also have advocacy. We have a guide, which also lists our policy priorities for this session. We have advocacy publications. We also have bill analysis from last session for the bills that passed. And we have a watch list for bills that have already been filed this session. And so this list gets updated weekly on our site. Whatever you do, you're welcome to bookmark it and save that for yourself to go back to from time to time. But this page is great because you can actually click on the bill that you're interested in. And everybody loves this one. Hey, we want to go back to the time when 90% of the funds generated by the program were spent on the program. So there are hyperlinks so that you can go straight to Texas Legislature online. This is what that looks like. Here's the landing page on it. You can actually create an account. You can do all sorts of crazy things on this site. There's a little button here called My TLO, which stands for Texas Legislature Online. lets you create bill lists and alerts so that you are notified with one more ping in your inbox if a bill has been introduced based on, if you're interested in certain content, you can do keywords. When it's assigned to a committee, you'll receive a notice. If it's scheduled for a hearing, you'll receive a notice. If it passes out of committee, you'll receive a notice. Basically, you'll get pinged 500 times if you follow all the bills filed for public education. But I use this tool. It's great for me. If you want to read the text of the bill, you just hover over text, and you can PDF, HTML, or the Word document. And so typically the fiscal note really comes later, and usually only for bills that really have a chance of moving and getting a committee hearing. The Legislative Budget Board provides fiscal notes, and they can get behind quickly. And so the leadership directs them to really focus their energy on bills that are more likely to get a hearing so that lawmakers understand what they're dealing with for a fiscal note. You can see if who helped author the bill, co-sponsor, if any, and watch it as it works through the stages to become law, okay? So if you do run a bill list, this is what that looks like. So if you see a bill of interest and you want to go ahead and look up House Bill, let's look up, well, let's see, 2444, first on the list, it comes up. So there's a little search engine over here for you. But back to the lists, you can enter the bill number, write a caption about it, and save it. And every time you want to run an alert list, boom, you got it. Easy as that. Giving you all my trade secrets here. No, I'm not ready to retire, but all right. So back here at CTAT.org, if we go to the main advocacy page, tells you a little bit about our evergreen policy initiatives. This is where you can access a host of guides, how to work with policymakers. Of course, if you don't feel like reading that and you had a quick question, I'm giving you my mobile number. Anytime you contact me, I'm here for you. You can find out who represents you in the state legislature, your House member, your senator, State Board of Education, and US Congress. This also has a hyperlink to our watch list for the current legislative session. Here's a link to take you to the handy site where we just were, Texas Legislature Online, which does actually have a mobile option. So you can log in from your phone as well, or tablet. We link to ACTE's federal policy agenda for you if you'd like to keep tabs on what's going on in Congress. ACTE has an outstanding action center where it auto-generates letters for you. So it's absolutely a wonderful tool. And so this page also spells out the legislative priorities approved by the CTAT board. And some of these have a higher likelihood of going the distance than others, but it's important for us to post this publicly to know where we stand as an organization. So that's where you can find that, and links to ACTE's watch blog and ways to keep track of what's happening with Perkins. So, and publications, for example, these we've collected, they're from a variety of sources, including, I think we have at least one or more from the Texas Workforce Commission, several from Advanced CTE National Organization. We have several from ACTE, and there you go. If you come across a resource that you feel should be added to this page, please do let us know. Happy to put that in there. So, I'm gonna stop share, switch over here. There we go. Okay, and I'm the genius who didn't select presentation mode ahead of time. Here we go, still learning. Okay, so again, part of our role, we are the leading advocate supporting CTE programs and the professionals who lead them. That's you, and this is where feedback comes into play. So we spent time looking at the resources currently available on the CTAT site. Again, I can't encourage you enough to make use of Amazon. If you're not a Prime member, I highly recommend it. If this isn't your front porch every month between now and June, I will be very disappointed. Now, on to our bills. So one of the first bills I'm going to mention, this is one of our priorities and is a holdover from last session. And so we're very fortunate that we have two strong bill sponsors already. So there are two bills, they're companions, one in the House and one in the Senate. And it would add an accountability indicator for CTE in Domain 1 for students who successfully complete a program of study. And so this is to take the pressure off industry-based certifications and really align at least a couple of our state indicators with what we report to the federal government. Also, now that we have a very reliable way that the courses are being coded, that students are completing, they're able to evaluate data basically apples to apples. So since programs of study, data collection was just data collection year one during implementation. And so now we're sort of, if that served as any sort of a baseline, the data we will have going forward will be even stronger. Okay, so skipping back. Okay, so House Bill 622, they're always looking at ways to make it easier to bring CTE teachers into the classroom, especially for hard to fill positions like health science. And so they're looking at directing SBOE to develop rules for abbreviated educator prep programs for marketing and health science. And the way the bill reads, I'm going to have to get some clarification on this for us. It requires at least 200 hours of coursework or training. I don't know if work experience helps satisfy that. So I think we're going to need a clarification there. We have gotten the green light. We've got support in the Senate, as I've mentioned, from Senate leadership. We don't have a bill yet to address the funding inequity identified for the PTech and Innovative Industry Academy early college high schools. Okay, so this bill list, the second one, these are bills to watch, but I don't know if they're gonna make it even, to a first down. So, but I still think it's worth watching. This bill, this HB 1032, it actually came up last session, and CTAT actually opposed the bill, and we're planning to do so again this time. It would allow the Skills Development Fund to reimburse employers for paid internships through CTE programs. And we hit the pause button on that for a variety of reasons. And I'm definitely interested in hearing your feedback to see if anything has changed between last session and this session. But basically, subsidizing private employers can start to eat away at a lot of money. And, I guess the general thinking last session was that for the state to pay employers to take students really sets what could be an expensive situation. And, how do we identify if there's some that have more need than others? Is this equitable? Is it fair? If a student actually is being productive for a privately held company, for example, and they are profiting due to that student's work, is it acceptable for the state to subsidize that? So I think, as we look at placing students in, in work-based learning situations, there are a variety of hurdles, and this is only one of them. And so very interested in hearing your feedback on that. Another one, now this one actually might go the distance. It's another holdover from last session. This is HB 244, establishes a grant program promoting computer science certification to get more certified teachers into the classroom and more professional development for current teachers. So as we know, only computer science certified teachers are able to teach those courses. And so I think this is an effort to try and expand the staffing pool for that, ultimately with the goal to increase the number of students enrolling in and completing those programs, obviously to address labor market demand. So HB 434 by Keith Bell, this one is offered as an option let students satisfy a required graduation credit with fine arts or CTE. And our board had a task force that met and discussed this one at length. There's probably somebody here on the Zoom who was part of that call. But ultimately, we decided not to provide a tremendous amount of support at all for this bill. Number one, it pits program areas against each other. But I think one of the bigger reasons was looking at the overall goal of CTE is not necessarily to get more explorers that take one class, but it's really to have a student not only do career exploration, but the further they get in their educational progress, that they're able to complete a program of study, not just take one course. And so forcing them to take one credit in fine arts, that's it. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to focus on that. Students can still take, where there's plenty of room for CTE, there's plenty of room for band, for athletics. And so our task force ultimately decided that we're not necessarily going to throw muscle behind this. So still interested in your feedback. HB 437, this is very clever. This is, if anybody's familiar with Pat Hardy, she's a State Board of Education member from the Metroplex, and she was instrumental in helping to introduce this bill last session. And so what this bill does is it adjusts the 5 elective credits that students must get. It reduces that number to 4.5. And it says, we're going to prescribe a 1/2 credit course in personal financial literacy. So it did not garner wide support last session. And so we're not sure at this point how far that's going to go, but we're definitely keeping an eye on that one. So those are the main ones that have come up so far. Obviously, the House Bill 3 cleanup bill has not yet been introduced. We don't know TEA's priorities on that, nor do we know the priorities on that for the House or Senate leadership. So they've asked the lawmakers to really streamline the bills that they file. They want to have a very expedient session without dealing with a lot of legislation that has very little chance of progressing. So they're asking lawmakers to stay very focused. So I will stop sharing screen, especially so I can see the chat, because I can't do that while I'm presenting. And I'm going to go ahead and get quiet because I really want to hear what you guys think and what you have to say. And if you have any questions about either the bills or CTAT's resources or others. So.
Robin, I remember asking you about why they don't do dollars and cents or money matters. And you explained to me that it was the physical note that raised it to that bill. It'd never get off that's why they don't add those courses. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I got permission to do the required, we took off personal financial literacy off of our course offerings because you just have to legally offer it and never make it. So we got rid of it completely, and I embedded those TEKs in our dollars and cents class because we've got that backed up with professional communications for our speech credit. And I got permission to do that from the state, that I was able to embed personal financial literacy inside dollars and cents. But if they make it a standalone course, then I'm going to lose that ability.
Well, and not only that, I'm seeing in the chat here, someone wisely pointed out there aren't very many half-credit courses to pair that with.
Yeah,
So
and that's what we have right now because we just had, the semester change, and they're dumping kids in credit course, 1 full year credit courses because there's no half credit courses for them to go to because we don't have that many. There aren't that many to offer anymore. There used to be.
Hey, Robin, is there any way to have the discussion though with them about putting personal financial literacy into CTE since a business certificate can teach the class? I mean, that's what doesn't make sense to me, is that it's being used as a history or social studies half credit, but a CTE teacher can technically teach the class. So wouldn't it just be almost simpler just to add it as a CTE course? And we actually
Well,
just
well,
wrote in for us to require that all kids have to take personal financial literacy before they graduate.
Well, and I absolutely appreciate that point. And I think certainly when you're looking at the programs of study, that course would be a nice addition. And again, like Mark mentioned, it's the fiscal note. Because if that were a C, and plus this will just, we don't know if this bill's gonna pass, so it's still in play. If they move that course under CTE, the fiscal note would be tremendous. Especially if every high school student were required to take it, because right now students are not required to take CTE at all in order to graduate.
No. I wasn't saying for them to require it. I'm saying we as a district just wrote it into us for all of our students will have to take it before they can graduate.
Well, I think the major difference in the TEKS to the requirements had to do with that FAFSA requirement, where they want everyone to fill out the FAFSA, and that's part of the TEKS for that personal financial literacy, since now that's a grad requirement. And they want to make sure the kids understood that and the cost of college and all that. So, you know, and we went ahead and bought Dave Ramsey's personal finance curriculum, which, I mean, the kids are excited. They want to take the class because they're seeing the value in it. And they actually asked that we choose that, the dollars and cents class, to pair it with our professional communications, because we did a survey and they wanted to learn more about their personal finances.
Well, and as you all know, districts are all about flexibility. And so this bill definitely has a steep hill to climb, but we'll certainly keep an eye out. And Rick, I love your idea, because just in recent history, the lawmakers have been repealing prescribed graduation credit requirements to allow more flexibility. And you saw they came out big with House Bill 3 saying, we're going to kind of organize this in buckets, similar to what CTE, how CTE is structured. And so they have a recent history of repealing prescribed credits. Of course, we have a lot of new lawmakers. We don't have as many that were around for HB3, but still the fiscal note, if we moved it into CTE, would be significant. But to Rick's point, it's just like they did with the speech TEKS. As long as you can integrate those into your curriculum, that they love that. Same thing with tech apps, for example. In the earlier grades, they're just TEKS that aren't necessarily tied to a course. And so if school districts have the flexibility to fit that in, and oftentimes we see bills like this pop up because a lawmaker has heard from one constituent group or one constituent who has made this recommendation. And oftentimes those lawmakers would benefit from the feedback about the flexibility districts currently have and what you're doing to support those learning objectives. So on our bill watch list page, it links directly to that bill, and you can see who authored that bill and find their contact information. So it's very easy to reach out to their office, even if they're not your lawmaker, to say, hey, I work in CTE, understand representative filed this bill, I'd like to talk to the staff member responsible for this bill, and provide context. That's all you gotta do. Be friendly, but context is good.
Robin, I have a question. I don't have the exact information in front of me, but I had a conversation with my marketing teacher who said that a rep from TA talked to state DECA people and that CTSOs are going to be part of the accountability system. Have you heard anything like that?
No.
I haven't either, but it was one of the TA reps that talked to the state DECA office.
Yeah,
Robin?
I'm not sure how they would do that. That has come up before, but again, I'm not sure how they would do that. And I would also say to you, and you'll hear me say this more than once, is our current commissioner is all about outcomes, not necessarily activities. And so, but we'll definitely keep an eye on that.
Okay.
Allison, when Les Hudson was on here giving an update, and he talked about the MOA visits, that may be coming from that, because he was stating that when TEA when they go out on an MOA visit, one of the things that they're really going to work with on the districts is developing their CTSO programs. So that may have been where that came from.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, to Rick's point, if you are incorporating those TEKs already and explain that that is a wonderful flexibility to have and that your district administration values those learning objectives, that's good to share.
I have a quick question. Mark, on the CTAT update, you put in there about the TASFA and the FAFSA, but it says proposed. Has that actually been finalized that it is going to be required? Because now it's saying required, well, I mean, required to graduate high school, but I mean, there is obviously the option where a parent can sign, the piece of paper, but is it final, or is there a timeline where we're able to make comment on that?
My understanding is that's still in the reading process, and so it will go to public comment. But most of the time when they get that far, it's going to happen. So if you do have feelings on it either way, I would make sure I provided public comment. Oh, Ms. Keller said that she heard today that FAFSA will be required for 2022. I haven't read that as absolutely correct, but I do know it's in the reading process. Ms. Anderson, did you hear that also, what Ms. Keller said?
Yes, I did. And one of our assistant superintendents has actually even handed it down to me as well, because I have to handle a lot of our FAFSA and college and career stuff as well as CTE. And so they're already having me prepare for the fact that we're going to have next year's graduates either have that opt-out form that TEA is supposed to have ready for everyone, or we're going to have them do their FAFSA. I do not look forward to this. I do not like it. So, just saying.
Mark, can you check Ted Mackey's question in the chat, please? I'm curious about that.
His question about the hold harmless on the ADA affecting the requirements, I have not.
I'm trying to reach out to see if I can get an answer on that one.
Yeah. Mr. Mackey, where did you hear that from?
Well, it was just a question that was, I was in a meeting with my CFO and we were just talking. He wanted me to investigate it during this meeting. And so that's where I'm bringing up at. So yeah, any information would be helpful. Thank you.
I haven't seen anything on that, but Robin has reached out and maybe.
I'm done summing. Stay tuned.
Thank you.
Robin, have you heard if they're going to extend hold harmless to second semester?
I haven't heard yet.
Hey, Robin, this is Marlon from Judson. Was there a reason why TEA took out the 2019-2020, the original programs of study, the layout that we had? I really like that cover page that was there with all the programs in a cluster, and now you can only see like animal science, then you have to go to the other one for applied, but the visual was really a nice one to show to administrators when we were looking at all programs of study in a cluster. It's just a question.
Does anybody know the answer to that one?
Oh, sorry, was that more of a Mark question?
Well,
I'm wondering. Yeah.
I pulled up the website and I'm looking at it right now, and it still has all the programs of study. You just have to click on them individually, and you can get the program of study that's Is that what you're talking about?
Well, I can see the individual programs. I just like the cover page that we had with all the bubbles. So you had you had the cluster, and then in the cover page you had all the programs kind of coming around on the right side. So,
Yeah.
that's missing, and it was very helpful. I
Yeah.
don't know why I didn't save those before, but if anybody has them, I would love to get them from somebody.
And we can certainly ask agency staff if that resource will be available. Again, you bet, Theodore. We'll ask them.
Thank you.
And y'all aren't talking about the accessible versions where you can change. You're just talking about the ones that have all the courses on them, right? And
Marlon, it looks like they have it under archived at the bottom of the page.
and I put the programs of study. I just put that link in there, and
Yeah. Scroll to the bottom, there's one that says archived. And then it looks like they've got the ones that are all on one page.
Yep, they sure do. I'm gonna copy and paste that link in there too.
Okay, so we've received clarification.
Thank you.
The direct indirect cost allotment will not be impacted by the hold harmless funding issue.
Yeah,
Well,
that's good.
that's great news. Thank you so much, Robin.
But it sounds like what we might want to watch out for is if you've had if districts have lost some students, if they've had a reduction in students, that's one of the things we're going to have to watch for.
Can you get that percentage raised from 55%? Even back to 58 would be great.
Well, you saw, okay, so Representative Gary Gates, and I know several people on this call worked tirelessly to provide the representative's staff with some detailed statistics about enrollment in your programs and industry-based certifications as part of those programs. So Representative Gary Gates filed that, and we've seen that bill before. Quick history, I know some of you probably even know more details than I do, but I think it was about 3 sessions ago when lawmakers really increased the basic allotment. If we had kept the 90% spending requirement, it would have really inflated the amount that they needed to budget. So in order to keep it at the same level, it was adjusted to 55%. I did the math. I'm not a mathematician, but I worked with Karen Batchelor. I'll tell you how long ago this happened, to figure out if it was exactly identical to what districts were receiving previously, and it was. So actually wasn't, it was the State Board of Education that made the initial adjustment on that one. They changed it from 90 and lowered it, and they had the discretion to do so. And so with House Bill 3, the lawmakers actually took that out of the hands of the State Board of Education, specified it in statute. So anyway, it's still, in theory, comparable to what districts were getting when the 90% went away. But we would like to see that number move, of course. And I will tell you, from a strategy perspective, oftentimes lawmakers will file bills like that, and knowing that at some point they will, if there is interest, they may go to the negotiating table and adjust that figure.
Robin, didn't we run into a problem back then with they were allowing the school districts to keep more for administrative after they made that change? And that was another negotiating thing we had to go through. Because I know it dropped. It was equitable, and then it dropped because some school districts were taking more for their, for the good of the children.
You're right, Joe. And I think what impacted that is if there was a significant swing in the basic allotment, that some districts were impacted more than others.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, I think they're moving on to something far more exciting than the 87th legislative session. Thank goodness.
Very good. If you missed the first, when we were given the updates, we were talking about the NOGAs not coming out for the reallocation, and Mr. Sanchez from TEA put answer in there. So I hope all of you saw it. But basically, he says they're working with their IT department in adjusting the reallocations, and so you should probably look for a NOGA within the next 3 weeks. And so thank you, Mr. Sanchez, for that. And then Ms. Hendricks, would you ask that question out loud? I think that was a good point.
So I won't, but I'll direct it to Amber Ham, who I shared my login with for this meeting. So it was actually one of our team members. So Amber, take it away.
There's 2 Tracy Hendricks today.
Oh, wow. Like a
No.
gum commercial.
Right, exactly. We're twins. Hey, so we're just running into an issue with some of our teachers in lab settings, like culinary chefs and some of our ag and floral design teachers needing a camera that can move around the classroom, around the lab with them, that they can show close-up detail. That we bought a GoPro and thought it was going to work, but it doesn't live stream with Zoom. So our district uses Zoom, and so we need to find something that would be compatible. And I was just curious if anything is working for you guys that may be using Zoom. So far, iPads is what technology has suggested. And I like the mobile rolling tripods. That is a great idea as well.
That's
And
what we're using.
Is it? Okay. And I've heard a lot about Swivel, but to my understanding, Swivel doesn't work with Zoom, or does it?
So I don't know, but Tracy, what some of our teachers do is they're logged in twice, and one with their iPad and one with their main one, so they can move their iPad on, and that can become the dominant, well, I guess the one that's talking, and that can be used for a close-up, but they still have the stationary one, which would be their laptop or desktop, with either using that camera built in or one of those clip-on ones that cost $30 on Amazon. And that gives a wider field, and that seems to cover everything. And it's not you're not worrying about a lot of new equipment or things for people to learn, and that's always our struggle. They get a little bit apprehensive with trying to figure that out.
Good suggestion, Joe. Thank you.
I have used Swivel with Zoom.
Yeah.
Just once, and that's what I needed it for a presentation, and all the other cameras were taken, and so I did use it, but I wasn't really moving around much. So
okay,
what Joe suggested might be better.
Okay, thank you, Heather.
I've been doing similar as Joe's, and even our automotive instructors doing well with the iPad on a tripod out in the labs.
Beautiful, thank you.
If you end up with Swivel, I think it does work with Zoom.
Okay, good to know. And that was off of one technology specialist digging into their website, but it could work with Zoom, like you guys are saying. So I appreciate all of the feedback. Thank you so much.
Swivel would just maybe be a little expensive if you needed very many of them.
Yeah, we're gonna have to price that out. Good point, Heather.
A lot of discussion has come up over the past few Zooms about the CTAT courses and working with special needs students in career tech programs. And I visited with Laura Torres last week from TEA, and there's some exciting stuff going on that we'll get with you after the midwinter. But one of the things that we're looking at is partnering with TEA and maybe doing a pre-conference workshop. And she is really excited to work with CTE and SPED and develop specialized tracks that include possibly video libraries. So I know one of the things that we discuss is that every single person in this Zoom room has the same issues dealing with the SPED students. And so TEA is really looking to partner with people to provide some resources for career tech students from SPED. Does anyone else have a hot topic? It's 3:30 and we're not trying to get anyone off, but we certainly want to respect your time. So if you have a hot topic that you want discussed, now's the time.
This is Susie from Hayes. I have a quick question. We were talking earlier in a meeting about trying to create master courses in Schoology and possibly paying teachers this summer to work on curriculum. I don't know if anyone else is also working on master courses in Schoology, and maybe we want to get some of our teachers together or something, or work together on the same goal. Or
Sure. Hey, Susie, we've been using Schoology here in Anna for about 4.5 years or so. And so we do have those master or base courses set up, and there's still some of them are a work in progress. So just reach out to me via email, and I would love to partner your teachers up with my teachers. We can definitely do that.
I'm going to do that. Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
And actually, I could do you one better. I can up that a little bit. I'll probably just connect you with Mindy Vandegrift, our digital learning coordinator, who has access to all of that information.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
You're always such a great resource. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Likewise, I steal from everyone else.
We all do.
I have a question for the group, and I've talked with some of y'all individually about this, but there was recent reminder sent from TEA about making sure that our teachers who are teaching CTE math classes have taken the Texas Gateway Integrating Math PD courses. Nothing was mentioned about the science ones. I've had some questions and confusion about who's required to take that, and if teachers had taken the old integrating courses that were very specific, course specific, do they also have to take these? And I emailed TEA back in December and not heard anything. Are you guys just having everybody take it? They seem so misaligned, and I've had some confusion. I'm just wondering if anybody else has thoughts about it, or have you already had your teachers take it and that's old school and I'm running behind, or what anybody have the insight?
Ashley, we worked to get that cleaned up last year in A-Leaf, and if they could show us their certificate from the old course, we were told by TEA they did not have to take the new course. But if they could not access their certificate, then they had to retake it. And we went ahead and we did everybody across the board. If they were teaching if they were a math teacher teaching the CTE, or they were the CTE teaching the math, we made them take it. And we went ahead and put it in their we did HR a favor and our teachers a favor going forward. We went ahead and put it in their HR file. So if they'd left us, it would go with them. And then if there was ever any question or an audit, that it was, because it's going to be, what we were told by HR is it would be them who were audited to see if a certified teacher were teaching the class or not. And so we put it all in their HR file.
So the problem with the new one is there's not a certificate generated, and
Right.
it says that right there. I made all of our teachers take it, even if they had taken it before, just in case they needed the refresher or there was something new. There's not the science one out that I could see, just the math, but I have a concern that there's no certificate that says they took it. We're just using the honor system that says they did it.
Well, that was one of my questions to TEA, was if no certificates are provided, what documentation are you expecting us to keep? I guess my frustration with it a little bit is that the course seems to be designed on how to integrate math into non-math classes, not for classes that are math already. And that was one of my questions to TEA for clarification on that, because historically, if you taught advanced animal science, you were taking a class on advanced animal science. Their course was designed specifically for that course, and these just seem kind of backwards. But it's been crickets. I've not gotten anything. And so I am running behind and need to have some of my teachers take it, but I couldn't figure out if they had already taken the previous one, if they had to do the new one. So I do appreciate your clarification on that, Kimberly.
And I'll just kind of reiterate, when these new courses came out, they told us if a teacher had proof that they had taken the other one, they did not have to retake these.
Okay.
And for those right now, because there's not a certificate, and they keep saying that will be coming soon, that I tell them to take screenshots and save that at the end when they're done and put that in their file. And that should I mean, there's proof that you went through that.
So now
Um,
here's another kink in the chain here. What if we have them teaching under DOI?
They still have to do
They
it.
still have to do it.
Okay. Okay.
And just make sure you date when you take that screenshot. Just make sure you date it and sign it.
Yeah.
Have to date it and sign it, and there's 2 parts, so you really need 2 different, you need both parts. They need to finish both parts of it, and both parts need to be sent to you. Part 1, they can't do part 2 unless they do part 1, so they need to send them. I have them send it together. Don't send them, like, don't send one and then send the other. Just send them when you're done with both. Send both of them, and then I just download them and date them and save them in their. But we did the same thing, Heather. We, it was. If you don't have it, then you have to do it. And,
Any idea about how long time-wise it takes a teacher to do part 1 and part 2?
About an hour and a half.
For each?
No, total.
Total.
Yeah, they do it in the evening. Like I sent it out and I got it in the morning.
And it kind of depends on your teacher a little bit.
Yeah, it seemed to be super quick.
Way shorter than the previous ones, I believe.
I had one last year who told me that it was quicker for her to redo it after she looked at it than to try to find her certificate from the big long course.
Some have said it's a good reminder of the CTE information they need to incorporate. I mean, some of them are just kind of doing it and sending it and haven't gotten any feedback at all.
I want to throw a totally unrelated question out there. I saw something in the chat that made me think of this. Somebody said something about Gateway. I had a conversation with someone from TEA who works with innovative courses. I'm sure that narrows it down. And there's a conversation apparently about whether or not Project Lead the Way will still be like innovative, or it can't. Has anybody heard any talk about PLTW on the innovative course list?
Yeah.
Okay.
They seem to have a lot of support, Tracy. I mean, if that happened, I would kind of be surprised about it. There seems to be a lot of support, not just in Texas, but nationwide for it. So that would be a shocker, though.
We use it, but I'm sorry, go ahead, Ted.
No, that's it. That's all I was saying.
And they moved Principles of Engineering, which started out as innovative, and then they moved it and changed the name to Engineering Science. And so, some of them have other matches that are already courses where they wouldn't need to necessarily become a standardized state course. And I haven't heard that, but I think Project Lead the Way has more control over their courses if they're innovative.
Well, it came up because we were looking at a computer science curriculum for programming and software development that there's a third-party curriculum provider for that I really, really like what they're doing. And we were talking with the innovative course people about trying to set up an innovative course for that. And she told me that they are wanting to move away from having paid curriculum options like be innovative courses. And I said, you realize Project Lead the Way, and as soon as I said it, she goes, it's going to come up in conversation. And so I was just curious if anybody had heard anything yet. And I don't know what she means by when it's going to come up in conversation. So it was a rumbling from the innovative course people, and I just didn't know if anybody else had heard it yet. Doesn't sound like it, so I'll just leave that alone for now.
Tracy, who were you working with for the computer science curriculum?
It's a company called TechSmart.
Yeah, I know my buddy Bruce and
Bruce,
yeah, good guys.
It's a great program. I mean, it's from my perspective, it's a great thing. But I probably am not going to get to do it. But that was how it started. Is we started the conversation about innovative courses, and so they reached out to TEA to schedule a meeting. And when they did, they were kind of discouraged from doing it for that reason. So then he asked if we could all have a meeting together, and we did. And then that's when they told me.
So I met with Bruce multiple meetings, and I decided to stay away from it at this point because of the cost, and also my experience in teaching the courses. I elected to stay with Code HS, and then I basically took everything that he told me, and I'm utilizing it with Collin College now. And so we were already kind of doing those things, the workforce or dual credit to workforce, and I did enjoy the DOK conversations. But yeah, if we can afford it, we were definitely going to go with it. It seemed pretty innovative.
Ms. Blunt put in there, thank you, Heather, for putting in there the link to the trainings. So if you're not watching the chat, that's in there now. Anyone else?
Real quick, do any of you have really good success in some of your classes with the Adobe certifications like Premiere Pro? There's another one that we're doing that we could connect some of our teachers with to talk to about how they are preparing their kids for those certifications at the end of the year. Are any of you doing that and have good success with it? Another couple of districts we could talk to?
Yeah, so it has been a struggle with ACA, and it's all over the list, and it needs to be adjusted, to be honest with you. So here's the thing with Adobe certifications and any type of graphic design artist or AV expert. They may or may not enjoy utilizing the software. They may be a Final Cut person, and then you know how much that one costs. It's a lot of money. So it's taken me several years to really get my teachers buy-in. And one of the things that we did was we had our AV teacher get certified in Premiere Pro throughout COVID. And he was like, oh my gosh, it's that easy. And so we have had a tremendous amount of success because he's actually embedded it within his AV, we call it AV2 to AV4 curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And we are seeing success. We actually had a student pass the After Effects certification exam as well. So I could connect you with a guy named Randy Cramen, who is a complete expert at it. Anyone that has failed so far is right there at the door of passing. So I would definitely love to connect with you on that.
Ed, do you mind sticking your email in the chat box?
Sure. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Mackey, you get the award for biggest earphones too.
And they light up as well.
One more question. Has anybody used the resource Soft Skills High in any of their courses before or heard of it? Crickets.
I heard of it and I met with them. I'm sorry, I talk a lot. I did meet with them, and COVID offered me a lot of times to vet out a lot of companies. The only issue that I ran into is that we were also rolling something else out at the time, and I thought it was going to kind of clash with it, and so I held off. And then soft skills also, and it's really cool. The only issue that I had with soft skills is that it's connecting students to adults. So I was a little bit apprehensive in doing that with anybody under the age of 18, right? And so obviously 16-year-olds were going to be on there. And so I immediately I paused for a second. We were going to look at it in some of our upper level courses. So.
We, our CTE coordinator, Kyle's on here. He did talk with them and we were looking at the possibility of implementing it in practicum and career prep classes. The content seems to be really good, but I just wanted to know if anybody else had experiences.
We had the same thing, Heather, as far as like where Theodore mentioned the scariness of putting kids with people we don't exactly know, like that for that part. We were exactly the same boat. We were using Naviance to help with our kids with career exploration, but it's not really user friendly or gamified. So we're right now looking at some other options like just to try to get that career exploration going.
What part of it were they connecting with adults? Because I must have missed that part in the presentation, or they didn't talk to me about that.
No, I would have to go back and look at my notes, and I believe it's soft skills. It's because I vetted that one out. It was when they had to. They were setting up something like LinkedIn, and that their scores or whatever was going to connect them with people in the industry so that they can get feedback on where they were in a certain area. And so based upon their scores, I think, I could be wrong. And I could be talking about the wrong piece of software right now because I have looked at a few of those.
I'm sure you're right, because I heard the same thing. And it was the same thing about them posting it kind of like a LinkedIn situation, just like that.
Yes.
Okay, I'm full of the questions today. One more question. Did any of you, through your small animal classes or vet med classes, do any type of service for either your teachers or your community that you open up and do dog washing and nail clipping and that kind of thing, either once a month or once a week or anything like that? Any of you do that? I've seen some tweets that Temple ISD does something like that. But
A-Leaf has doggy daycare every day.
Every day, doggy daycare, okay? That's A-Leaf, did you say?
Yes, ma'am, A-Leaf ISD.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We do in Hayes also.
Okay, A-Leaf, Hayes,
Alvin.
down by Katie, yes.
We're doing it at Judson.
Judson, awesome.
Yeah,
Kyle?
Lamar Consolidated ISD does it as well.
And Hayes and Lamar. Okay, awesome. We may be trying to connect to get a little more information.
We have two schools. I dropped my email in there. At Pflugerville, we started doing it this school year actually, and I can share with you all the documents that we put together because we worked with our health and safety coordinator to make sure we had all the rules in place and waivers and forms and stuff like that. So if you need anything, my email's in there.
Thank you, Tracy. I think that's my last question for today.
Yeah, I was going to say Aikens High School and AISD runs a whole, like they have a vet that comes in and also works with the students, and they do like a mini vet clinic. And then Bowie High School does all.
Very cool. And y'all are close. Awesome.
Yeah.
You know, ag chapters have done rabies vaccination clinics since the beginning of, since Noah come over. So I think you'll find it pretty standard, Ms. Metzger. All right, any last questions? We certainly have more time if you need it. Anyone with another topic? If not, I'm going to hit the stop recording button.